Thank you for joining us today on the Cancer Project podcast. We are really privileged to have State Representative Melissa Provenzano with us today. She has an incredible personal journey going through a cancer diagnosis just here recently. She's also dealt with her mom going through not one, but two different cancer diagnoses. And she was the sponsor of House Bill 1389, a bill here in Oklahoma which expands access for women needing diagnostic screening for breast cancer. And we're going to talk through all of the trials and tribulations that she had to go through to get that bill passed, which was actually at one point vetoed by the governor. So join us today for a great conversation with State Representative Melissa Provenzano. Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on. This is an opportunity I'm so glad to have. And when you asked, I'm like, oh, I'm there.
Well, we appreciate your passion advocating for women who are needing screening for breast cancer. So yes. Just to kind of set the table a little bit, tell us, I think you joined the House of Representatives in 2018. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what led to your interest in politics or wanting to get involved there?
So totally not in the same lane, but I was a high school principal and had been doing that for 10 years. Before that, I was a teacher, and I had cut my budget every single year for 10 years. And I don't know if you'll remember, but in 2018, the teacher walkout happened here in Oklahoma City. And so I drove down, met with my representative, lovely representative. He was a nice man. Didn't tell me a whole lot, but I was tired of funding drying up and going away. And so I was advocating, and he was termed out and the seat was open. And so I decided to run. I went home and I'm like, well, so here's how much I make as a principal. Here's how much a legislator makes. Right. Can we make this work? And so my husband and I figured out a way to do it. And we've just been moving ever since. And I have a relatively purple district. And so it was, as a Democrat, it was hard, a lot of sweat equity, but hopefully bringing some balance to the Capitol.
Well, we have a connection that we just talked about before we came on here. I grew up in your district. Yes. In Tulsa.
Best district.
The best district, yeah. Shout out to Shadow Mountain Estates and 61st and Memorial. And my parents still live in your district. And you said
in my square mile.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, that's incredible. And Grissom Elementary is still up and running and going.
Yeah, love that part of Tulsa. So shout out to Tulsa. It's a beautiful city. Yes. So you joined in 2018. What were some of the early focuses for you after you joined the legislature? Sure.
A lot of what I came to the role hoping to accomplish was centered around public education. But I also, when you're knocking doors and talking to Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Libertarians will take 30 minutes of your time.
Okay.
So just, it's amazing.
Small government, big conversations.
Oh, yes. A lot to say.
Yeah.
But it's always riveting. But you also get a ton of ideas from that. So I ran some education policy to begin with, but I also have largely constituent issues that I try to resolve through legislation or through working with state agencies. One of the pieces of legislation I was most proud of prior to the last few years was my work with the Demand Project, who is based in the Fontana, and they fight child trafficking.
Okay.
And we retooled the law to tighten up the language around that helps police officers do their job better, moving away from, when you see it when it comes to child pornography, and strengthening the law in that area. And then I spent a lot of time doing defense for our public education systems in our school districts, and some work for the county. But then in 2022, I actually ran the diagnostic mammography bill for the first time.
Right.
I had a constituent say, this is great, but I, got my screening and they found something. And so they ordered this next more expensive test. And then my insurance company would only pay a few $100s for it. and the rest was on me, which was about $1,200. And I had to decide between putting food on the table for my kids or doing this test. So what did I do? And I'm like, well, we're going to do both.
Right.
We need to do both. So I reached out to Komen at that time and said, what do you think about this? And they're like, well, would you like to become the 10th state to require insurance companies to pay for diagnostic mammograms? And I'm like, yes, I would.
Yeah.
And Komen is the largest organization, but not the only organization by any stretch of the imagination. And I tapped into Oklahoma Project Women as well as the Stonebrook Project. And we made it a requirement. But then after that, we started having women say, well, hospitals are telling me it's not covered. Insurance companies are telling me it's not covered. I have this machine and I'm in Guyman and it's not covered as a diagnostic mammogram. So that's when Komen returned and said, would you please be willing to write an expansion of that law? And so we did in 2025.
So going back to the effort in 2022.
Yes.
I grew up in Oklahoma.
Yes.
You're from Oklahoma. Oklahoma has historically been a state where it's been difficult to get what some would call mandates or insurance mandates through the legislative process.
Yes.
So did you run into any roadblocks in 2022? What was it like kind of, again, being a state that was a relatively early adopter to this requirement for insurance companies to pay for scans for women needing breast cancer screening?
Right. It was definitely a challenge, but Komen was an excellent partner, as well as the Stonebrook Project in particular, in getting those things across the line. And it was relatively easy to get through the House and the Senate.
Okay.
But insurance companies did push back, and we tweaked the language at that time to carve out high deductible plans or plans from out of state, because we really can't require much if your insurance policy is out of state. And those two tweaks helped us get it across the line. I had a champion in Senator Brenda Stanley, who was the Senate author. Her husband had passed away from stage 4 prostate cancer.
Oh, okay.
And so she's like, whatever, had we caught it early, Fred Stanley would still be here. And they spent, all told, $4 million in treating him. And so, the argument that it would be more expensive and raise rates didn't really land with her, because she's like, no, let me tell you how much it should actually cost if you don't catch it early.
Right.
And the governor signed it in 2022. So when we ran the expansion, which was significant, in 2025, we were all stunned that he vetoed it.
Yeah. So and I do want to talk about that, because I think that was shocking for the public as well to see that happen.
Yes.
So for those that are not necessarily familiar with the nuances or specifics of the 2022 bill, what specifically does that bill require insurance companies to do?
So that particular bill said if a doctor orders a diagnostic mammogram, and that could be an ultrasound, that could be an MRI, and one other one, I'm sorry, I can't remember at the time, and then the insurance company must pay for that with no out-of-pocket to the patient. And the 2025 added new machines, chromosome enhanced tomography, and a couple of other things.
There was a contrast enhanced mammogram. I saw that in there.
Chromosome, not chromosome. Contrast, a C word. I'm a biology teacher by trade. But those sorts of things. Sorry, it's late in the day, but just added more machines. So no matter where you were, what your zip code was, if you were a woman and you needed these services, if your doctor ordered it, you got it. So
really filled the gap for from some things that weren't covered in that first bill in 2022.
Right. And I remember at the Komen Pink Stiletto, they were talking about how much money has been saved by women since the 2022. And I think the total at that time, I want to say it was over the winter time, was the tune of $1 million that were left in the pockets of women that didn't have to pay for that. And so I think it's been huge. And now with the expansion, and with the higher profile of just the story of the bill, far more women are aware and men too,
Right.
because it doesn't carve them out, and men can get breast cancer. And far more women are aware. In 2022, women started getting refund checks because they had already paid that particular year.
Right.
But we expect that the impact will be even larger this year.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pull up my notes here to make sure that I get this accurate, but I believe that you won an award from the Komen Foundation at the Pink Stiletto event. And I don't know that I have the exact name of the award here, but what award did you win?
I think Women of Influence.
Women of Influence. That's right. Yes.
Yes. And it was a lovely little pink heart statue. Yeah. It was awesome. And I got to speak, and it was just an incredible night. I had my mom right by my side. Yeah. And she's very much avoids the limelight. But that night was incredible to be there.
Yeah. Well, and I think well-deserved for you to be honored that way.
Thank you.
So you mentioned your mom. And I know you've been pretty transparent about the struggles that she's had with cancer, not just once, but twice. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the journey that she's gone through.
Sure. So she was diagnosed for the second time this past October. So it would have been 10 years prior that she was diagnosed the first time. Caught it very early, had a lumpectomy, and just had to do radiation. And we thought we were done. And she felt like she got off easy. She would tell you in 2014 that she was one of the lucky ones and just had some radiation burn, and that's kind of it. But then this past October, after I'd already agreed to run this update in this major expansion, it came back in the same spot.
Wow.
And so she'd had the single breast mastectomy. But I remember when she first told us, we were at Mario's Pizza in Broken Arrow, because that's where our family went to I don't know, just every other Sunday. And that definitely rocked our world, because my mother is strength personified. And she just is a quiet queen that will persist and just kind of move along and not really raise, too much ruckus about, look at me, what's going on. And for her to have to tell us something like that was profound for our entire family. But she came through it well. And this October, she's 10 years older. And it's a little bit harder.
Yes.
And so she opted for the full breast mastectomy. And I kind of thought, and I'm running for reelection, and I know I'm running this bill, and she's like, well, how do I, so now she's navigating the law and trying to understand and trying to explain, how to code, because she was a patient care provider by trade in Tulsa at St. Francis. And she helped people get their insurance bills paid by retooling the coding and did a lot of good work. So she was able to navigate it easier, but she still struggled. So can you imagine what the general population faces on the regular?
Oh, it's a foreign language. I mean, when you look at an insurance bill, an explanation of benefits,
it's just a bunch of codes.
It's very hard to explain.
Yes.
For sure. So,
and if you can tweak the code and get a bill paid, and then that means more money in someone's pocket.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we're kind of going through that. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, because of her, my sister and I were pretty religious in getting annual mammograms.
Right.
And I was due to get mine in September, but because I was campaigning for re-election, it got pushed to November. And in November, it was caught, and it was so small that we wondered even if it would have been caught in September.
Oh, okay, right.
And so it was a very unusual time. And by December 11th, I'd had the screening, the biopsy, the MRI, and the ultrasound that had diagnosed, and when I told my mom, she's like, oh, did I do this to you? Did I pass this down to you? And I'm like, as luck would have it, no. Because when you told us, both my sister and I got genetic testing done.
Right.
And she didn't pass us anything. It was whatever else there was. Right. And so, I have a different kind of cancer. She still to this day feels guilty. And I'm like, no, Mom. There's 100 million things that can go wrong. And the particular type of cancer that I had was fast moving and aggressive. So they moved fast and in an aggressive way to begin treatment.
So that that moment that you found out that you had cancer, was it a phone call or did you get a report? Okay. So.
Yeah, it was really odd. I knew the report was coming that day, and my husband had dropped off. There's a discount tire at 66th and Memorial now.
Yes.
And he had gone to drop off his car to get new tires, and he was going to walk home. And because I wasn't home yet, because it's not far from our house. And he called, and he's like, "Okay, it's really hot. Do you mind coming to get me?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, just give me a minute." And something in my voice, I guess, told him. And like this man who is 66, sprinted home.
Oh my gosh.
And it was fascinating because he's like, "I almost died."
Yeah.
He goes, "But I knew something was wrong." But I found out at home.
Okay.
And just kind of sitting with it. You go into shock, and different people respond to shock in different ways. And so I just kind of process what is and how do we cope and how do we move forward. And then you want all the doctor's appointments the next day because that's what needs to happen. But it works at the speed of doctor availability.
Right.
And navigating and picking a doctor and, we can't see you in 6 months. Well, I don't have 6 months to wait. I've got to get in now is something I think most people struggle with.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult part, I guess, for you navigating those first few days or weeks? I mean, I think probably part of what you said is just the want or desire to move quickly.
Yeah. And so, like every good Gen Xer, you turn to the internet to fill in the gaps until you see the doctor.
Right.
And so you can convince yourself of a lot of things.
Did that help? Did that make it worse?
Yes.
Both? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, well, here's what it could be. Here's what it could be.
Yeah.
But I was thankful to get into the surgeon relatively quickly. And then the surgeon, recommended this oncologist or that oncologist. And we just began a conversation that we're still having to this day.
Yeah.
And he was very practical and literal about, but also a patient advocate for how do you want to go about this. I did catch it early. I'm lucky. And my health insurance as a legislator, I'll be very honest with you, is one of the best parts of the job.
Okay.
We have decent coverage as state employees, and it felt like everyone should have the same access that I do.
Right.
And I knew I was already doing this job or doing this bill, but I'm fairly introverted.
Yeah.
And so like today when we leave, I won't smile the whole way home, or talk or do anything.
Yeah.
But it was a difficult decision to become public. But I knew, so I had surgery in January. Had a single breast mastectomy in January, and chemo was due to start in February. So I knew late March my hair was going to start to fall out. And I'll never, it was a difficult decision because you can't hide it.
Yeah.
You really can't. And so I decided to be public about it. And I think, honestly, it was the best thing I ever did.
So what, because I've seen you talk about that in a couple of interviews.
Yeah.
Just that decision that you were going through of, well, are people going to think that I'm running this bill? Is there like a self-serving aspect to it? Or, what, or I don't know, like second guessing, like how public should I be?
That's so real.
Yeah.
Yes. And I did, because we all spend a lot of time going, I don't want it to look like that. And there are people that are going to say that. People did say that. The truth of it is I had agreed to do it at a conference that I ran into Komen, the Komen representative, back in June, July. And I knew that. And so that was enough for me. And, and my treatment will have been much further down the line before this bill takes effect, which is November 1st of this year. And so it not going to benefit me. And I know that, and that's enough.
Right.
But in sharing my story, I remember, my caucus knew because I told them, and I told them what to expect and everything. But the other caucus, I had shared with them closer to the time that everything started moving. And I'll never forget the floor leader, Representative Josh West. I'd gotten the bill through committee.
Yeah.
And it was late March, and I knew because I was starting to have clumps come out, but I have very thick hair.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't really tell yet, except I had a pet roller and all of that. And I was
Senator Stanley, I saw one quote where she said that you had a great head of hair.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so I went into Josh West and I'm like, well, so here's the thing. I've got this bill. If you're going to put it on the floor, I hope you do. If you will just do it before I lose my hair. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize he didn't know yet. I just assumed.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, should I give you a hug? No, don't touch. Okay. Yeah. And yes.
Yeah.
And that was a Thursday or a Friday, and the next floor day was a Monday. And that's when we put it on the floor in the house, and you turn around and you just see this little dots of pink everywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so, but after that was perhaps some of the most moving and powerful moments of my life, because everybody's looking somewhere to release their story. And I heard from, stories about my wife dealt with this, my aunt, my sister, my best friend, my mother. I even had one staff person that says I've just been diagnosed, but I haven't told anybody.
Oh my gosh.
And so people are looking for a place to put that. And those stories are going to, for the rest of my life, because I was a safe space.
Yep.
And so I'm glad I did it, even though it was a lot for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think having worked in the field of oncology for a couple decades now, I think that's one of the things that you realize is that pretty much everybody's been impacted by cancer, whether it's a family member or a friend. I remember speaking at a high school a couple months back, and I'm thinking, these kids are all 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't lived long enough to have this exposure experience with cancer. And so I asked the class who in there either had a family member or a friend that they had direct knowledge of or experience with them going through cancer. And I think there were 30 kids in the class and 28 of them raised their hand.
Oh,
it was even at that age, it was already, whether it was a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a friend.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that it doesn't discriminate. It impacts everybody. And it's really neat. I mean, I can't imagine what that was like coming in after you went public with the diagnosis and seeing people supporting you by wearing pink or wearing the cancer ribbons.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a crier, but there were some tears for sure. And just... You get through it. And then, that next week in particular, just inside the Capitol building, the stories I could tell. Yeah. But then that went statewide. Yeah. And how do we get this done? And then the bill crossed over and Senator Stanley took it away. And she had some people vote against it. Yeah. And it was, and she was just, we're going to do this. It's going to get done. And we did. But I remember when the governor vetoed it, he said, well, insurance rates are going to rise. And we had the evidence, and I'd actually reached out and said, listen, if you're even thinking about vetoing it, just let me come talk to you first. And that didn't happen. And that's the way that works sometimes. But we have other states where you've had this expansion where it hasn't increased at all. And so it was a null set of what can happen. And it was fascinating when we got to that last week, and usually the veto overrides happen on the last day. So I kind of expected that. Yeah. And Brenda was like, well, do you have the votes? I'm like, oh, yeah, I got them. Do you have them? Oh, yeah, I got them. We just got to get on the floor. Yeah. And I don't know, you might have heard me speak about, when I did it on the floor, I knew how it was going to go. And so I wanted to see her at work. And man, when she presented the override, there was fire coming out of her fingertips. And she was just a force. Yeah. And then you had another female senator stand up and tell her story, and another. And then you actually had Senator Bergstrom stood up and he says, I voted against this. I don't believe in, I don't want to increase insurance rates. I don't want to do this. But then I got home and my wife was waiting for me. And she took me to the woodshed. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. And then she turned me over to my daughters. Yeah. I will be voting for this bill because I would like to go home. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, the women, and it was just such a unifying force. And we just truly stripped away party. And I'm like, we could do this all the time. So
talk a little bit about that party aspect because Oklahoma as a state is one of the most partisan states in the country, and the very, very red. The vast majority of senators and representatives are Republican. Senator Stanley's a Republican.
Yes.
So you were actually working primarily with Republicans, so crossing over the aisle, as they say. What was that process like, and was there any hesitation on the Republican side working with you, or how did you kind of navigate all of that?
There always is that perceived discomfort of, am I going to work with a Democrat? Brenda doesn't suffer a lot of that nonsense. I think she's like, is it a good piece of legislation? Let's go. And she's like that across the board. But I knew her personal story, and I knew mine. She actually lost her sister, not her husband, but just her husband, but also her sister to breast cancer a few years later, like last year. And so she's all about prevention, and so it's easier with her. But when I do run legislation as a rule, generally I reach out to Republicans because, one of the things that we kind of fail to see, especially on a national level, is you don't get anything done. I don't get anything done by being rude to anybody because, they'll go, well, stinks to be you. We don't have to support you. And so showing respect and collaboration and on all things gets you a lot further down the road. But in this area, I remember the first time around, the Speaker Charles McCall, his wife had breast cancer, and John Eccles' mother had been or passed away because of breast cancer, and it was just even within the ranks of Republican and Democrat, the letter behind your name didn't change that,
right? And
the same happened again, and I learned even more, stories of where that was happening. Everybody, 1 in 6 women in Oklahoma is, more than the national average.
Right. Yeah.
And so, even just in the ranks of the female legislators.
Well, we in Oklahoma, I'm glad you brought that up. So there's a higher incidence rate of cancer in Oklahoma than the national average. There's definitely a higher incidence rate of breast cancer. The other thing in Oklahoma is that we have some of the worst cancer mortality rates of any state in the country. I mean, I've seen some rankings where we literally are 50th, depending on the type of cancer. And a lot of that has to do with screening. It's not getting screened early enough.
Right.
Because we can do a better job treating cancer if we catch it earlier. And so it's legislation. If we really want to tackle cancer mortality in Oklahoma, we have to be thinking about it from the standpoint of access to screening.
Right.
And that's partly what this bill does.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about the national model, women in the state of Oklahoma can start getting a free screening once they're 40.
Okay.
You can get one at 35, but just one, and then you have to wait 5 years.
Okay.
And unless you have a family history, you have this or you have that. But you have younger and younger women that are being diagnosed. Yep. And so, that's kind of in my line of sight is what do we do to get that 40 down to 30 or, and what's next? Especially, I have 2 stepdaughters and I'm like, I know we're not genetically related, but 1, 2, 3, we're half of the ratio. And so I need you guys to take this seriously.
Yeah. So the veto by the governor, how did you find out? I mean, did you think there was
I got an email.
You got an email?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I think...
It's like the breakup text message.
Yes. Well, there's it's efficient.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But yeah, and then there's a veto message that comes along with that. And I think he even made a video about it, for TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
And just about, increasing insurance. And it was just offensive to me, but I think there was just this, feminine rage that I'm like, oh, here we go. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and I'm going to keep going. And I went to speak to my leader and to the speaker and just, I said, right out of the gate, I would love to ask you to consider this for veto override. And I had assurances that would be definitely at the top of the list. And then you have everyone that is just shocked. And so I think I probably gave 100 interviews. Okay, that's probably a little high.
Yeah,
but I gave a ton of interviews about the fact that he had vetoed. It wasn't a good look.
Yeah.
And And in that veto message, just the media bounce educated more women about the need. And I think probably every single district or county in the state had a woman or a man calling their legislator saying we need this overturned. And when it came time to do the veto overrides, we were all called into an office if we wanted to make our case with the governor. I'm like, well, I already vetoed it. Why would I do that? But all right, well, if you think it'll help and make more. And so I go in there, and there's one of his representatives, and I sat down, and I'm like, okay, House Bill 1389. They're like, yeah, we got you, Provenzano. We've heard from everyone. Yes, you're fine. We're not going to fight it.
Okay.
Because what they could have done is, like, maybe I get it across in the House, but then they leverage something else in the Senate to not get it on the floor. And so we cleared that hurdle and got it done.
So then I think I read that the actual veto override happened pretty late at night.
Oh, yes. Well, that actually didn't much have to do with that particular bill.
Okay.
But because that was the last day of session.
Okay.
And there was a lot of politics going on that day. And the governor said some things, the legislature said some things, and then we're all like, what else can we override? And I think out of the 60 plus vetoes, we overrode like 47.
Oh, wow.
I want to say.
Yeah, that's a big number.
And that's just total insider baseball. He said some things about a senator's wife that he shouldn't have.
Yep.
And he threatened to primary all the Republicans, if they didn't do a certain thing. And that was very unifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, no, you won't. And so I'm like, I know that's not the scope of this interview, but it's just fascinating to see. And we actually also had a bill that was being held in the Senate because it didn't have the votes, and we were waiting on a member to come back from Washington, D.C. to come in to vote on it because it lacked 2 votes. Dealing with the National Guard. Okay. And so that, where we waited for hours, combined with the actions of the governor, just created Brenda having to present the bill like 10:30 at night.
Okay.
So,
okay. Yeah. Hard at work. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 What, and so when does the bill go into effect?
November 1st.
November 1st.
November 1st, yeah.
And so at that point, women should expect that if they're referred for one of these additional diagnostic screenings, contrast enhanced mammogram, and I think there's a few others in there, and we'll put a copy of the bill on the link to this podcast.
Definitely not chromosome enhanced. I cannot believe I said that.
We'll figure it out. We'll list those out in the link to the podcast, but then they would be able to access those follow-up services without having to pay out of pocket then.
Right. And I mean, the high deductible is still
okay, there's still some exclusions.
But most women should be able to experience an expansion of access. And, I even, when the bill passed, I took it to the breast center at St. Francis, which is right next to my surgeons. And I'm like, I told you this would happen, but, this is passed. And they're like, we're so pumped. We've been following it. And even within their own billing cycle and practices, they have been able to say, this is coming, but this is what is right now. So don't put this off, because we believe we can help you get it covered if we code it correctly to women. And so more women are getting tested. And so hopefully it'll help.
Yeah. And when you talk about increasing costs, it's so interesting because I think I agree with what you're saying. And I think Senator Stanley has the right approach, which is if you catch cancer earlier, we can do a better job treating it typically. We're going to be more successful treating it. And a lot of times there's less treatment required.
Right.
And it's the treatments ultimately that are really expensive. I mean, when you talk about stage 4 prostate cancer, and that doesn't surprise me to hear that her husband incurred millions of dollars in expenses. And so why not cover $600 or $800 or $1,200 for an exam to potentially prevent? That's a lot of exams you could pay for that would be offset by,
Mine was caught very early. It was 4 to 5 centimeters in diameter, very small. And my surgery was $44,000.
Oh, wow.
And then the follow-up chemo was $7,000 a treatment.
Yeah.
And just to get my port removed was like $4,000.
Yeah.
And now I have a Herceptin shot that I get once every three weeks.
Okay.
It's a couple of $1,000s.
Yeah.
It adds up,
Yeah.
you know. And I just... and that's early detection.
Yeah, right. And there are millions of people in the United States that are in medical debt, and not by any fault of their own.
Right.
Just the nature of the system.
Right. And we actually had a piece of legislation that we tried to get through this last session that said, you know, medical debt cannot count against you on your credit report.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't really control it.
Right.
And even people who have socked away all the cash, it'll be gone in a second.
Yeah.
You know, if you're spending it all on hospital bills.
Yeah. So I see that your hair is starting to grow back in.
Woo!
It looks good.
Thank you.
Does it look like it did before it fell out?
It does not.
Okay. Yeah. That happens a lot.
So my last treatment was at the very end of April. And I was like, well, so can I start really trying to pump this into, you know, high gear? And the oncologist was like, go for it. And I'm like, all right, give me the Rogaine for women, give me the Nutrafol vitamins. I want all of that. So I'm about 4 months out.
Okay.
And my hair is actually naturally curly and brown.
Wow.
You know, a lot of these colors.
Yeah.
And it's coming back in gray and black, but just as thick. And it's starting to wave a bit. And so I'm a little terrified, you know, because it took me until 18 years of age to discover like hair gel. And so I'm like, okay, I'm ready for it this time. And just hair is a thing. Yeah. Hair is it's a big deal to women.
So, I agree. And we treat a lot of breast cancer at the Proton Center. And we actually have a charity that operates out of the Proton Center called Concierge, and they provide wigs for patients.
Oh, yeah.
It's that moment in time where you start to lose your hair that a lot of times can be one of the more traumatic moments along the journey. So what was that experience like for you? And then also, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about, for those that aren't familiar, just that process that you have to go through to get a wig.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, the experience itself, you kind of hope that you're one of the 1%ers that nothing happens to. There's cold capping that you can do that may or may not work. That's quite expensive. And so choosing that or not choosing that, my husband and I, we decided we didn't want to do it because there was just no guarantee. You know, and when it starts to fall out, like people wonder, when should I shave my head? You'll know. Yeah, it's a clear day when you run your hands through your hair and it just comes out in clumps, and it keeps coming out in clumps, and it keeps coming out in clumps, and you can't brush all the loose strands away.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, you know, it's time. And I actually had my hairdresser on speed dial. She knew the day would come, and she came in on her day off and did it and cut my hair very short, actually a little bit shorter than it is now.
Okay.
Because I thought naively, well, I'll keep it at this length. And then my husband, who had grown his hair out during COVID down to his shoulders, which was not, you know, he shaved his head too. Oh. And so we've both been and he had to cut his hair like 5 times, you know, and I'm like, I got one sprig right here. Yeah. But I cut it really short, and then it was not like Cocker Spaniel clumps, it was Chihuahua, you know. And so I'm like, well, we've got to go ahead and shave the rest.
Yeah.
And that's when I donned the wig. And it was fairly easy. My insurance covers half the cost.
Okay.
So I was able to get a decent wig. Wigs have come a long way.
Yeah.
And so I think I had it within a week when I ordered it. But just the wearing of it's so hot and uncomfortable and itchy, and is there a harsh wind? Is it raining? You know, if you're like doing something, is it gonna skew? Not and you know, I could barely handle fake nails, so wearing a fake head of hair was a challenge for me.
And wigs, it's good to hear that your insurance covered half of the cost. Is that pretty typical to have insurance?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I believe, well, actually in Oklahoma, it's state law. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. That some portion of it has to be covered.
Good.
So
wigs can be
it's
expensive.
A big deal,
a good wig is expensive, though. I mean, that's another.
Yes, and you have to care for it otherwise. Yeah. And by the end of session, mine was a little rough. Yeah, you know, but I got a nice one. Yeah. And so, but I had any number of supporters, but it was important to me because I thought about just not wearing one.
Right.
But it was important to me if I was going to be on the House floor, that I look strong.
Right.
And healthy.
Yep.
And, there was the same gentleman who helped me get my bill on the floor. He goes, I had no idea. And I'm like, well, great.
Yeah.
I could tell every day.
Yeah.
But I would go into my office and take a break.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. So now you mentioned you did surgery.
Yeah.
Did you have to do radiation as well? Okay.
No, because I took the entire breast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did surgery and then chemotherapy and then now the I guess it would be technically hormone therapy.
No. Actually, it was HR, or it was hormone negative.
Okay.
It was Herceptin positive.
Positive. Okay.
And so I think that's the correct pronunciation. And so I actually get a shot of Herceptin once every 3 weeks now.
Got it.
And it's relatively new, like right now, right when I was supposed to start getting the infusion through my port, stopping chemo and just continuing with the Herceptin there. I got something from the developers of the drug that said you can now get it as a shot. And I'm like, well, shoot, sign me up, because
instead of having to do the port.
Yeah, 100 times faster.
Yeah.
And so got the port out, which was super weird because I got to stay awake for that.
Oh, wow.
But it was really cool because, I am a bit of a science geek. So I was like, this is really cool. Tell me exactly what you're doing. And the doctor's like, I can't believe I did this.
Yeah. So, you're a special patient.
Sure.
So what do you think needs to happen next from a legislative standpoint as it pertains to maybe cancer specifically, or even healthcare more broadly? What are some things that you have on the horizon?
Early screening period is for cancer is the game changer. And this bill will help. We also had a bill this session that required full coverage of genetics testing, the BRCA testing. And just having it be law is one thing, exercising the law is another, because most folks don't know. Mm-hmm. And so being able to come and talk here will reach a population of folks that might not otherwise hear it. And so the education piece, but then Komen and the Stonebrook Project has already said, okay, what's next? And I think really lowering that age of how often you can get a mammogram, and having the data to say, we need that, I think is, in my mind, what's next. And
so if a constituent, whether it's in your district or even probably in another district, because I think you've certainly demonstrated to be a passionate advocate for patients and patients' rights.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think you would say reach out to you if people are running into concerns or issues, getting access to healthcare or getting insurance to pay for. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of concern with the federal changes coming with Medicaid.
Yes.
And I think there's going to have to be some sort of response from the state of Oklahoma if that funding is cut, whether it's next year in 2027 or whatever ultimately shakes out. We're well positioned, at least for a couple of years in the state of Oklahoma, with money that we've set aside to cover if it ever drops, because we do a 90-10 match.
Okay.
But we're going to have to figure out something for the long haul after that.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the number one, who's going to get booted off of Sooner Care, who's going to not even be able to get insurance beyond cancer. I think those are my top issues that I worry about.
I mean, if you get diagnosed with cancer and you don't have insurance, that's a battle that you don't want anybody to have to face.
You don't get offered certain things.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got a letter saying, I have this new drug that you could take a shot instead of doing the traditional route. Would you like to do it? The company will pay your copay.
Right.
But everybody won't get that letter.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Worth your time.
Yeah, no, this was amazing. I don't know. It's just, again, working in the field of oncology and cancer screening, we need people like you in the state legislature
to keep
advocating for patients and being public. I think you said one of the best things that happened with bill, the 1389 was actually it being vetoed.
Yeah.
Because it just created so much organic awareness and so much passion.
Oh, yes. And it, statewide.
Yeah.
And so now, if you live in Guyman, you live in Hochtown, Broken Bow, you live in Lawton, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, you're much more likely to have heard, just because. And I was like, well, thank you, Governor. The fascinating thing, he didn't invite me for a bill signing.
Oh, wow. Well,
ceremonial bill signing.
Yeah.
It's like where you get your picture and then you get to save the pen that he signed it with. Whatever. That's fine. Got the job done is all I really care about.
Yeah.
But it definitely raised the bar.
He may hear from his wife at the house at some point. So I think he has a daughter or two. So
I believe he has from time to time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, again, thank you so much.
You.
And we wish you the best of luck, both you and your mom, with recovery from going through cancer. And
her journey's a little different. She's doing well, but because of her age, they didn't do chemotherapy.
Okay.
They put her on the Taxol pill.
Okay.
And that does a number on you as well.
Yeah, the side effects are just... Yeah.
It's harsh.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I'll only do this many milligrams. And they're like, well, you should really do more. She's like, 73, get busy living.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you're having to be a patient and a caretaker at the same time. And that's...
Oh, no, she lives independently.
Does she?
I don't have to, I mean, there is nobody going to... No person going to say this is how you should do things to my mother.
Good.
I will not be.
Family of strong women. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, thank you so much again, Melissa. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on and let me talk about this.
Yeah.
This is good.
Thank you.
All right.